Hi, grade eights. Mr. Smith here. Just wanted to give you a little help and support here in our last week. This is essentially the last week in terms of teaching any new material or even going through the year or providing you with an assessment, okay, to demonstrate your learning. And basically what I'm focusing on this year is reviewing and reflecting on the year, okay? So let's get into it. This is your title slide. This next slide is literally space for this video, which I'm recording, so obviously I can't embed it until I'm done. The next slide here. This week is really simple but hard. I want you to reflect on your year in social studies and give me your thoughts. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, I'm going to have you answer some questions. All right, basically it's a classic question and answer assignment. Okay, it's a writing piece, or maybe not. We'll see. Here are your instructions. This is your final assessment. There are 5 questions I'm going to ask you. The 5 questions are in the slide presentation and they are in your assignment Google Doc. In other words, I'm not gonna give you a copy of your own copy to edit of this slide presentation. This is just your normal slide presentation. It's for reading and viewing only, okay? I am just repeating the questions here so you get a chance to prepare yourself before you dive headfirst into the document, okay? So there are 5 questions in the slide presentation, and then I repeat these 5 questions in the Google Doc, all right? There are 5 questions I'm going to ask you. Now look, you only need to answer 3. And in the slideshow here, you can see I've color-coded all 5 questions. And look, there's a bonus question there, okay? But you only need to answer 3. So let's be clear about something. I want to give you some choice because you may feel more comfortable answering certain questions more than other questions. So I want to give you choice. Okay, so here's each question, well, may or may not have some background info. It's just me jogging your memory. And I will post more resources, more materials, more review stuff in Google Classroom, okay, to help you out. All right, so here is the background information for question 1. And question 1, predictably enough, is about worldviews, okay? So I snipped this little definition. I gave you, I used both grade 8 textbooks that are official in the province of Alberta. This was ours. This is the other one I used at a different school, but basically they talk about the same thing. What factors shape your worldview, okay? So here's question 1. Our theme this year in social studies was worldviews. What did you learn about worldviews? In other words, when you look back on the Renaissance and the Aztec-Spanish conflict and the isolated approach Japan took for 200 years during the Edo period, what did you learn about those societies and how they formed their worldviews? So the bottom line is, what did you get out of social studies this year when it comes to learning about worldviews? Okay, so I want you to talk about worldviews in this question, all right? So you can reference these. You've got different factors: geography, knowledge, society, beliefs, values, society, time. And over here, just a different way of structuring that, okay? So what did you get out of social studies? What did you learn? What did you learn about worldviews? That's what basically question 1 is. Question 2, I assume this shape is looking a little familiar, including this word. Okay, you remember this shape during the Renaissance? You may wish to remember for question 2. Hey, do you remember this shape during the Aztecs? Well, you may wish to answer question 2. Gee, I wonder what question 2 is going to ask about. And here is the same shape. No, it's not a octahedron cube. This is the same shape for Japan. So here's question 2. Every society we study was structured in a hierarchical pyramid of class, wealth, and power. Do you think in modern day Canada that a hierarchical pyramid of class, wealth, and power still exists? And what are some similarities and differences between modern day Canada and some of the pyramids we studied? So how is modern day Canada, say, similar to Japan or Aztecs or the feudal Europe, okay? Or all 3? What are some differences, okay? How is modern Canada, if you think there's a pyramid still in Canada, how is it maybe completely different? How is it very similar, okay? That's question 2. Question 3, this is, I don't have any graphics for you as background. These are more kind of current events questions related to what we studied. Okay, so it says, this year, especially in the last 3 months, you've been witnessing and have lived and been a part of living history. Question 3, compare Canada's response during this recent global COVID-19 pandemic to the Black Death Europe was ravaged by and to the smallpox plague that nearly wiped out all of the Aztecs. Nearly all of them, but not quite. Thank God. Consider the following points when forming your answer. Were the societies you are comparing, for in other words, Canada versus Renaissance Europe and the Aztecs, were they prepared for these diseases? How many people died? A lot, not many. I would kind of argue that Canada has a much lower death rate than either smallpox during the Aztec time or Black Plague during the European time. Talk about how Europe changed to due to Black Death and how the Aztecs were changed by smallpox. You know, diseases change society, especially ones as devastating as smallpox and Black Death. Now, COVID-19 is not as devastating, but surely you have noticed we've changed quite a bit of things on how we do day-to-day life in Canada. So talk about how you think Canada will be affected by COVID-19. You could talk about how it's already been affected, how it will continue to be affected. Okay? Question 4. Again, no background slides, infographics needed. Okay, again, the last 3 months you've been witnessing and lived and been a part of living history. Recently, the US, Canada, and the rest of the world have seen massive demonstrations, the largest in history, regarding fairness, equality, and justice for Black peoples, Indigenous peoples, persons of color. We're using the abbreviated acronym of BIPOC to describe this group. If you were to argue that a hierarchical pyramid of power, class, wealth, and privilege exists in Canada, the US, and the world, where do BIPOC people fit into this pyramid? Okay, so I'm talking about in 2020. Talk to me about similarities and differences of the struggles of BIPOC people in modern societal pyramids in 2020 versus the struggles of different classes of peoples in the 3 case studies we studied from hundreds of years ago. So I'm talking about feudal and Renaissance Europe, our first unit, their second unit, Aztec in Spain, and the third unit of Japan. So that's question 4. Okay? I'm trying to get you to think this through, right? And I'm trying to get you to connect. I'm also basically kind of answering, you know, how's this stuff related to modern life? Well, I'm trying to get you to draw those connections, grade 8. Okay. Question 5, the last one. Here's your background info. Remember how geography can shape society? Look at this trading route from the Silk Road, going all the way from Japan across all of Asia to even into Italy and even Western Europe. Okay? So, geography of Europe. Geography of Spain and Mexico. And of course, here's where the Aztecs settled in the Mexico Valley. This is Lake Texcoco. Okay, remember, some of their water was salty, some of their water was fresh. And here, of course, is the geography of Japan. Now, remember, Japan is like over 75% mountainous. It's in that ring of fire zone. Lots of volcanoes, lots of earthquakes, lots of tsunamis. How can geography shape a society? So here's question 5. How did geography shape or affect worldviews of Renaissance Italy, or the Aztecs, or Spain, or Edo Japan? You only have to pick one of these options. You don't have to do this massive comparison of all 4. Just pick one of those options and explain how geography would have affected that society's worldviews and development. You may wish to talk about how, I'm just trying to give you some hints here, how mountains affect travel and defense of a region, how mountains affect how easy or difficult it is to unite a region or country or kingdom, how mountains and water affect trading routes, how central or distant trading partners are. In other words, remember that Italy and the Middle East, hence Middle East, were in the middle between Western Europe and China. This was an advantage. Okay, I'm giving you that straight up. That was an advantage. But how was it an advantage? Okay, remember how they acted as middlemen. How much or how little good, fertile, productive farmland affects how a society develops. Remember, Japan had issues with farming. The Aztecs, remember, they had to deal with a little bit of salt water there in Texcoco, right? Not good for growing. Okay, you could talk about that as well. All right, so that's question 5. You guys have to pick 3 of these, okay? You have to pick 3 out of the 5 questions, okay? So that's question 1. We talked about worldviews. Question 2 talks about the hierarchical pyramid. Question 3 talks about how pandemics affect society. Question 4, again, a little bit of question about the pyramid, but how people struggle, okay? What are the comparisons here? Question 5, geography. And question 6, How old is the universe? Remember our first 2 weeks in September. Guess what, grade 8s? You did fine. Peace out. Love, Mr. Smith. Okay, we'll see a lot of you, hopefully most of you, all of you at some point, well, next week and next year. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.